just from the topics and discussions I've had with a few people, and one being yesterday, I heard that's not the case. I did think it was a bit unfair, to be honest, anyway, because if we're going by their guidelines, as a mandatory, it's up to 30%, and as the WBC interim champion, it's up to 45 to up to 55%. And when you take into account Dillian is someone who is a pay-per-view fighter, he does good numbers. He sells out the O2 on more than a few occasions. So that would suggest he does quite a few tickets and he's got a good fan base. So all of that into account, you want to take that into account. You understand there's a lot of money on the line, but then yet again, this is Tyson Fury and his team. He always says, money isn't my main focus. I give my money away to charity, and now here you are wanting to penny pinch someone else who's in the sport of boxing, just like yourself, who wants to earn what their just dues are and what they deserve. A lot of people say, oh, well, they should take it because it's for the world title. But you must understand, it's like, that means he would take this, and then what he's meant to do is push this fight, make the pay-per-view numbers as big as they can be, but most of the percentage to go to Tyson Fury. What for? Because this fight, if it's a stadium fight, it's a stadium fight because he's fighting Dillian Whyte. Tyson Fury fights anyone else. I'm not sure he even sells out 5,000, not being funny. You know what I mean? Tyson Fury, he built himself solely because he went to America and he fought Deontay Wilder 3 times. Great strategy from Bob Arum, those guys, when he got him into the WWE and stuff like that. Those are the kind of stuff that started to signify and make Tyson Fury a household name. Because before that, he wasn't selling numbers here. He wasn't selling out a ring. He couldn't sell out anything here. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if those were the reasons behind why the David Haye fights never went on, or the Klitschko fights never went on. I'm not sure. Maybe that might be just down to him and his trickery and Houdini, what Tyson Fury does, because he always leaves a devastation in his wake when it comes to these fights. Everyone says, he says he's the fighting man and he's this and that and whatever. But I'm a fan of his anyway because I'm a fan of boxing and what he's done. But at the same time, if we look at the history of what he's done, the Vladimir Klitschko fight on 2 occasions, that fell through, and that was on his part. The fights with David Haye, 2 of those also fell through, yet again, on his part. Then the Deontay Wilder fights, he didn't even want to take the 3rd fight. They had to take him to court to get that fight. So, every time there's something to do with Tyson Fury in fights, there seems to be some shenanigans, some underhand business going on. And then you've got Bob Arum and Frank Warren trying to offer Dillian $5.5 million talking about what your purse was last time. That's got nothing to do with anything. That's irrelevant what their purse was. You should offer based on the value of what the opponent brings. And you're saying, just like when people fight Canelo knows he's the A side, but then he still respects them enough and gives them the right amount of money. They're talking about.
What's good, family? So mash the like button, subscribe, and lick off the bell. So we just heard there from Team Dillian, the shillian, shite. Now, Lamar Dean Scott White, Lamar Dean Scott White, who is the manager, I believe, or something like that. Either way, what we know is, bottom line, Dean Shite, Lamar Shite, bottom line, is the manager and or brother and or some next wifey thing, 100%, took Dillian the shillian White's second name, 100% confirmed. So, bottom line is, Team Shillian White have broken their silence, and if you've been following my videos on this whole 80-20% debacle, you'll know that my position on this is that Team Shillian are playing the victim way too much, and I'm afraid to say, you've heard it now yourself, Team Shillian White's first statements are victim.com. Oh man, we need to be treated right, and the fighters. Tyson Fury, what about the fighters? You say that you don't love money, but we gotta treat Alvarez. He treats his Alvarez. Let me tell you what Alvarez does. Alvarez gets guaranteed, I think, what was it, $40 million? Yeah, Alvarez had a $40 million guarantee, and he paid Caleb Plantpot like 8 or 10 million. So wait a minute, let's do the maths here. $40 million guarantee Alvarez had. He played Plant at best 8 to 10 million. Let's call it 10. What's that? Wait a minute. 40 million guaranteed for Alvarez. 10 million for Plant. Oops. That's 80-20. And that's the problem with these guys, yeah. They hear things, they hear little bits and bobs, and then they run with it. But they haven't done the thinking. You've just proven that at best you're getting 80-20. At best. How about that? About Alvarez pays his fighters. No, the reason Alvarez's numbers, and the reason Alvarez's opponent's numbers are so high is because, guess what? He brings in mega money. And I'm not being funny, but just think about what's going on here, yeah? You've got Canelo Alvarez, who has the ability to sell multi-million pay-per-view sales, yeah? Golovkin, 1.2 million, whatever. And he's only guaranteeing his opponents, like Plant, $8-10 million. But then you've got Dillian Whyte, who's fighting Tyson Fury, who neither of them have ever sold 2 million pay-per-views or multi-million pay-per-views. And Dillian Whyte's demanding the same kind of guarantee, $10 million. So So using his own example is shocking. It really is. But again, it's not even, I wouldn't even mind so much, well, tell I, I'd mind either way, but it's the whole, when you add it all up, the whole narrative. It's like they're trying to beg the fan for support. Oh, come on, stop treating fighters wrong. All fighters need to be treated fairly. Are you joking? And I've got another video coming soon, but on this whole topic, another thing that sticks out, we keep hearing about how Tyson Fury is not treating people fairly. Now, I'm the first one, yeah? If he steps out of line, I'm going to call it. But in this example, what do we know? Dillian Whyte's turning his nose up at 5.5 million guaranteed. And people forget that 5.5 million guaranteed, that wasn't the final offer. That's where Bob Arum and Team Fury started at. Team Fury were offering, in fact, I don't know where, this is the crazy thing. Team Dillian Whyte, and that's why they're called Shillian. That's why their name is Team Shillian Whyte. Shillian Shite, because they're lying. They said, oh, we've only been offered 5.5 and, 20%. Well, wait a minute. The reason it's now 80-20 is because what? It's because you overplayed your hand. The week before the 80-20 ruling came out, what do we know? Yeah, I reported on it. The week before 80-20 was officially ruled, Bob Arum was on the interview begging, saying, Dillian, come to the table, we'll offer you 25% and 5.5 million, but please come to the table and we can negotiate. Team Fury was starting at 25% and 5.5 million. That was a starting point. And I said at the time, you could have potentially pushed that. Because Team Fury, at this point in time, they want to get a fight locked in. And they have no problem wiping Dillian Whyte's bum for him. He wants it wiped. But unfortunately, Dillian, he don't want it wiped. That's what we know now. Because if he did, Dillian could have come to the table, took the 30%, or negotiated for the 30%, and maybe, who knows, I reckon he probably could have got, what, 6 million? Another 500k on top, or another million on top? 6.5 million? But let's just keep it with the 5.5. The 5.5 million offered, which you failed and refused to negotiate with, what do we know about that number? This number that's so terrible. Oh, it's awful how Dillian Whyte's being done. I'm sick of this narrative around Dillian Whyte. Who does he think he is? Shillian, I've told you before. Let me tell you again. You are the man who lost to Anthony Joshua. You're the man who lost to Povetkin. That is your legacy as it stands. And it's the thing. What's happened is, you see, because of Sky, because of Dillian Whyte's position with Sky, he's got very lucky. In reality, yeah, Dillian Whyte is one of the most lucky people in the universe. Because he really, never mind, the fighters need to be treated fairly. No, Dillian, you need to treat the fans fairly. Because you've sold absolute crap pay-per-views. You owe this, you actually, I believe, I mean, that's the thing, can you believe it? I'm sitting here saying Dillian Whyte owes it to the fans to fight Fury. As if he's doing us a favour. You're still going to make $7, $8, $9 million, by the way. But anyway, like I said, you owe it to the fans. Why does Dillian Whyte owe it to the fans? Because you've gone on pay-per-view time and time again in some bum fights. Rivas pay-per-view, that never should have been on pay-per-view. Even the Povetkin fight, I'm not being funny, those aren't Dillian versus 50-year-old man. It's not a pay-per-view fight, I'm sorry, it's just not. It really weren't. Same, again, Dillian Whyte versus Parker. I just don't feel that's a pay-per-view fight. You got two fighters with no belts. I mean, since when has it become the standard for two dudes who are both losers, who have no belts? I mean, in my mind, yeah, the standard used to be pay-per-view would be at least you got to have a belt. At least. I mean, look at the UFC. Really, in the UFC, yeah, the only time a fighter who doesn't have a belt will be on pay-per-view, it'll be Conor McGregor. Outside of him, people ain't doing no pay-per-views without a belt. There's always a belt involved apart from McGregor. But yet in boxing, Dillian Whyte's had pay-per-view after pay-per-view. And unfortunately, what that's done is, that's inflated Dillian Whyte's ego. He now thinks he's some big commodity. But even then, guess what? The pay-per-view numbers don't lie. You're not selling multi-million pay-per-views. You're down in the low 100,000s, which isn't bad, but you're not some big star. And your resume is also trash. You've fought average people with no belts, and every time you've had opportunity to get some get back, to actually prove yourself, to actually make some value, and stop begging for it, aka the AJ rematch. I mean, again, Dillian Whyte's brother/wife was moaning on this, all we do is keep being done wrong. Anthony Johnston did us wrong. He only offered us $8 million when he offered Ruiz $9 million. Oh, we keep being done wrong. Listen, Dillian, let me tell you why AJ offered you low money. Do you forget? He knocked you out. For me, it's baffling, yeah? Let me explain, Dillian. When you get knocked out by someone, they have something over you. That means, for example, when AJ fought Ruiz, yeah, he hasn't got a win over him. He hasn't already beaten him on international TV, meaning that it's a much more of a, what's the name? When someone's new and fresh, of course, they come in at a higher percentage than someone who's been beat already. How does that make sense? How can a man who's been beat already in devastating fashion think he's got some leverage over someone who we're uncertain about? It don't make no sense. In Dillian's mind, it's kind of like, well, yeah, I've been knocked out twice, but my name's Dillian Whyte, a man who has been on Sky, has been shafting Sky pay-per-view, who's been shafting sales of Sky pay-per-views. And every single time Dillian gets an opportunity to really prove himself, he's the one who's moaning about money. No one else is. You don't hear Anthony Joshua moaning about the money. You don't hear Tyson Fury moaning about the money on this occasion. And again, on that whole note of the 20% thing, and on the whole note of the 5.5, they keep throwing, it's madness, they keep throwing out this number. Oh, I can't believe it. Can you believe he's been offered 5.5 million? That 5.5 million is a guarantee. That's what you're going to get. Plus, you get pay-per-view on the back of that if the show sells. But why I'm so confused, yeah, is the fact that what do we know? Tyson Fury came back after his layoff in 2016, or when he came back in 2018. What do we know about that? He fought Deontay Wilder, yeah, with a guarantee of $3 million. So we're talking pretty much half. Tyson Fury fought Deontay Wilder whilst he was unbeaten. I think he was still the Ring Magazine champion. And he had a win over Vlad on his resume. And he had scared David Hay off. And he accepted $3 million. Dillian Whyte's been offered twice as much. So it's baffling to me. It really is baffling what planet is on. About we need to be treated right. Well, why weren't you campaigning for Tyson Fury to be treated right then, when he was only guaranteed $3 million? Yeah? Let's be consistent here. Because all I'll be hearing from Team Dillian Whyte is that, oh, he'd be doing wrong. We need to victim game. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing, yeah. You got a whole bunch of big 6'5", 6'6", wannabe hood dudes from Brixton moaning and complaining about getting their shot. This is your shot. Oh man, we've been done wrong and we can't get our shot. And you get your shot and you're the one going to court. And you're the one trying to hold up and trying to be tactical and greedy. Honestly, it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for all Dillian Whyte fans right now. He should be saying, you know what, the system's had me down bad. Let me go and snatch the system. Because all you got to do, I've been saying this the most, yeah? We're talking about 4 months of time here. 3 or 4 months. In 3 or 4 months' time, Dillian, if you are who you say you are, if you are who you've been advertising you are, you'll be the champion. You'll be able to call all the shots you want. It's only 3 months. 3 months, and by the way, again, the way we're talking here is as if we're asking Dillian to do something for free. Don't forget, he's still going to make more than Tyson Fury did, or more than Tyson Fury was guaranteed against Wilder. In fact, he's still going to make nearly double what Tyson Fury was guaranteed against Vlad as well. So that is your value, Dillian. You've been valued at twice as much as Fury against Wilder, and twice as much as Fury against Vlad. So what are you complaining about? And by the way, he was undefeated on both of them occasions. And he took the fight, knowing the value of winning. And I have to give Tyson Fury credit because when you look at his career, yes, things haven't been perfect, but I'm talking about the value he's created. He went from someone relatively unknown and whatnot, and any value he has created, i.e. being able to sell 700,000 or 800,000 pay-per-views in the US, that has come not from talking, not from being on Sky pay-per-view and just plugging crap like Dillian Whyte's been doing. To Tyson Fury's credit, he's made that value from fighting Vlad for 20%, beating Vlad, to then going over to Deontay Wilder and beating Wilder two times. That's where the value's been created. And again, in that Deontay Wilder fight, Tyson Fury accepted a 60-40 split against him. I'm sure Tyson Fury could have died on a hill trying to argue for 50-50. Now, I'm the first one to say, when back in the day when Tyson Fury was demanding 50% from Anthony Johnston, that was not correct. I don't shield for no one, but in this scenario we're in now, Tyson Fury, if anyone has actually gone out and made his own value, it's been Tyson Fury. And this whole crap about, he don't sell in the UK, and if the only reason this show will be on pay-per-view or it will be on the stadium is because of Dillian Whyte. Dean, you're all over the place. 1 minute you said, earlier in the interview, Dean says, the 80-20 purse split has got nothing to do with what Dillian made in his last fight. But then you go on to say, the only reason it's on pay-per-view or the only reason it's in a stadium is because Dillian Whyte. Wait there. Listen, Dillian. Listen, Dean. Listen, Dean Lamar Scott Wifey. Listen, Dean Wifey. Yeah? 1 minute, how can it be the case that, Dillian's the only guy who can sell a stadium with Tyson Fury? Well, if that's the case, why isn't this big stadium numbers showing up in his last fights? You can't have it both ways. You can't say Dillian Whyte's a big stadium seller, but then his numbers are flopping. I had some people in my comments saying, but YB, the reason his numbers are low is because there wasn't no fan. Listen, the gate isn't where the most money is made. Gate is relatively mash. And besides, the numbers are the numbers. Tyson Fury, I'm not sure about the fan situation, but either way, they both fought in the same time. Dillian Whyte fought in, when was it? I'm not sure when he fought, but whenever it was. They both fought in a similar time, I think. Was it? Either way, it's irrelevant. The facts are, I wouldn't have a problem. This whole thing about this playing around the whole, it's because of C19, well fine. Let's go before C19. As I've said before, Dillian Whyte has a long history of selling pay-per-views. Forget his last fight. And this is the problem you see with these people. What I've noticed about Dillian is, you never hear him come out or actually expose numbers. They say that, it's got nothing to do with, it shouldn't have to do with the last fight. The last fight's irrelevant. Well, tell us some other fights then. For example, if I was so sure that my man is full of value, I'd be saying, the Povetkin fight doesn't count because there was no fans. However, when we fought, I don't know, who's he fought? When we fought Rivas, we made $10 million. Do that instead. So you're showing people examples. Now, I'll be honest with you. If Dillian Whyte shows me that he made $10 million against Rivas, I'll be saying, you know what, there is an argument that Dillian is this super valuable dude. But until I see him making and being guaranteed more than the 5.5 million that's been offered, there is no argument. And he knows that. You don't go from 300k to 5.5 million out of nowhere. Yeah? Dillian Whyte was guaranteed. I mean, it's the thing. People gas up Team Dillian Whyte and Team Eddie Hearn and whatnot, and Sky and whatever else, all them goofy dudes, But listen, Eddie, if your man Dillian's worth so much, why were you only guaranteeing him 300k against Povetkin? Oops. And this is the thing. I've had people saying, YB, you're wrong about the 300k. Listen, we don't know really what's going on, but the reason I'm sticking for now with the 300k number is because guess what? For all these people telling me, YB, the 300k is not right, guess what? I've never heard Eddie Hearn, and if you man can show me some evidence to the contrary, please show me it. Don't send me random websites who are guessing like everyone else. I'm talking officially, and from official sources, i.e. Team Tyson Fury, they've said Dillian got paid 300k. But like I said, what we know is Team Dillian Whyte haven't shut that down to the contrary. You'd have thought Team Dillian Whyte would have been out at some point and said, that's rubbish, we got paid 2 million or whatever. We haven't heard nothing about that, which tells me the number is correct. And instead, in fact, Team Dillian Whyte have not only not shut down the 300k, they've actually almost accepted it. The fact that Dean Whyte today was saying, it's not nothing to do with that shouldn't count. That is an admission. He wasn't saying that's a fake number, that's fake news. He was saying the news is correct, the 300k is correct, but it shouldn't count anyway. Eddie, if 5.5 million is so small amount, why weren't you guaranteeing your big star Dillian Whyte 10 million then for his Povetkin fight? Oops. Because ultimately, a guarantee defines how much your man. A guarantee defines how much your promoter values his fighter at. If your promoter doesn't think he can make much money off you, he's going to give you a low guarantee. 300k is a stinking. Honestly, I'm not a hater, and if I was to bet on Dillian Whyte's guarantee for the Povetkin fight, I would have thought it was at least $1 million. So the fact Eddie Hearn coming in 300k shows you And I've also heard anecdotally that Eddie Hearn often always loses these purse bids, showing you that he likes to talk. And to be fair to Eddie Hearn, he's a businessman, yeah? If Eddie Hearn can get something for nothing, if he can get, bearing in mind he's taking a 10% split or whatever, I'm sure, I'm not disrespecting Eddie, but I'm calling a spade a spade. I'm down the middle here. Yeah, I understand Eddie Hearn, if he can get 50 million instead of 10 million, he'll do that. But as someone I'm not getting paid by either side, I'm going to call it what it is and do the best for the sport. And the best for the sport right now is for Team Dillian Whyte. Stop victim. And it's embarrassing. I feel embarrassed for you Dillian Whyte fans. You man going along with this. A big hardback dude from Brixton gets his shot. I was the first one to say that, listen man, Dillian needs to stop being done wrong. He needs to stop being down bad. But now the opportunity has arisen. And it's actually written in stone now that he can get that. Dillian, you can get that Tyson Fury work. All this talk about, Dean White today saying, Tyson Fury ducked David Haye. Listen, I don't know about the whole Klitschko stuff. Yeah, Tyson Fury pulled out a few times with Klitschko. I've always exposed that. But end of the day, with that Klitschko thing, guess what? Klitschko shouldn't have been caught slipping. He shouldn't have been sleeping. He shouldn't have been so floppy looking. That's the first thing. No one asked him to go in there and not do nothing for 12 rounds. So I'll put that on Klitschko. Yeah, Tyson Fury is boring, but it's not Fury's fault as such that Klitschko didn't have no back end. That's the first thing. The second thing is the David Haye BS. Listen, you can talk what you want about anything. Yeah, Tyson Fury was acting 100% funny style with the whole Deontay Wilder trilogy. There's no doubt about that. However, as far as it goes with David Haye, if you understand the history, David Haye flat out ducked Tyson Fury. Yeah, David Haye and Chisora, I remember it. David Haye and Chisora were giggling on Twitter saying, we're going to ruin, I think Derek Chisora pulled out as well. I think David Haye pulled out twice, back to back, and then Chisora pulled out when Fury rearranged. And they was both giggling on social media that, we're going to single-handedly ruin Tyson Fury's career and keep him inactive or whatever. That's how that played out. So let's stop lying about, let's call the facts what they are, yeah? And besides, if Tyson Fury is really this slippery character that no one can get stuck down, that for me actually exposes Team Dillian Whyte. Because if in my mind, if I know someone super slippery and you can't hold him down and he's ducked David Haye and he's ducked this guy, he's ducked that guy, wait a minute, your mandatory has been called. Oops. So you've actually been given a shot, but you're the one saying no, we want to wait until March. That doesn't add up. This isn't the case that you haven't had the mandatory called. You've had it called. You now want a massive split. It's embarrassing. You can't have it both ways. Either Fury's a ducker and you should be all over this, jumping on it. You should have, I told you, listen, I said 2 weeks ago, listen, Team Dillian Whyte should bite Tyson Fury's hand off for 30%. And then, if and when he beats Tyson Fury, he can be the big daddy. He can make the big daddy calls. But I say every time, but Dillian Whyte likes to run before he can walk. Dillian, all you've done is sell a few pay-per-views against C or D rate fighters. You're not known as the big A star. You're not known as the man you're not known as the A slayer. So far, like it or lump it, Tyson Fury is the perceived A slayer. He beat Vlad and he beat Wilder. Those are two A-level names in the world of boxing. You haven't got no A-level. In fact, never mind A-level wins, you're known as the A-bum. Because you got wiped by Johnston. Anthony Johnston wiped you. That's what your legacy says right now. Your legacy says that every time you went in there with an A fighter, you got knocked out cold. This is your opportunity to really make a legacy. But instead, you're trying to play the numbers game. Because really, people, and it's the honest truth, any Brixton Dons out there need to know your man is scared. That's what I hate to break it, but that's a fact. The same way I call Tyson Fury scared, for playing around with Deontay Wilder and having to go to court, that was funny style, 100%. The same way I'm doing that, I'm telling you, Dillian Whyte, Brixton Dons, that your man is equally scared. That's why he in the court and not trying to get his. He should knock Tyson Fury out and then say, listen, Tyson Fury, if you want your virginity back, it's going to cost you. It's 90-10. Because I took 20%, and now, because I beat you, I'm now more valuable than you. So if I fought you for 20%, there's no way I can fight you again for 20%, because I've beat you now. You now must accept 10%. If you don't like it, I'll see you on your way. And that'll be his right, and I'll in fact support that for whatever that's worth. I'll be 100% backing Dillian Whyte giving Tyson Fury a 10% cut after he's won. Until then, you're ducking. Until then, you're politicking. Until then, you're trying to be smart. You're trying to get, I'm a victim. It's embarrassing, man. It really is. It really is embarrassing for someone who hasn't done nothing in the sport. You've done nothing but beat bums on pay-per-view. And like I said, really, yeah, the truth is, you owe it to the fans. For all them crap pay-per-views you sold, and I'm not blaming Dillian, because at the end of the day, people have to, or the fans have to pay for it. But I'm telling you, none of them shows should have been pay-per-view. Apart from AJ versus Dillian, yeah, and that was because of AJ. Apart from that fight, none of the fights you've had are bona fide pay-per-view fights. You're not world champion, you're not undefeated, and you're not some big name who's been running through everyone. I mean, what have you really brought to the table, apart from piggyback on Anthony Johnston's work? That's the truth of it. You fought all AJ's leftovers, who were half hot still. AJ would pop their cherry, and he'd send them down to you to kind of ride on the back of. And seriously, people, that's the truth. Joseph Parker got his cherry popped by Johnston. AJ took his belt, AJ took his cherry, and then sent him down to Dillian to ride on the pay-per-view bandwagon. After, because you've got to remember, people, once AJ's fought someone, yeah, that opens the name up to the public. That makes them, oh, look, this guy, you know what I mean? AJ's got a massive following, so he beats them, and then all of a sudden the UK public's already known to them. So really, yeah, when Dillian talks about the pay-per-views he's done, and the stadiums or the O2 is sold out, I kid you not, there's a reason why when Dillian Whyte fights people who are not linked to AJ, like when Dillian Whyte fights Povetkin or Joseph Parker, them fights are a lot bigger, yeah, than when he fights the guy from Bridgerweight, Rivas. That Rivas one tanked because no one didn't know the guy. So Dillian really is known as one. Listen, Dillian's a socialist when it comes to boxing. All Dillian's done is piggyback off different things. First of all, he piggybacked off Johnston. Oh, I'm the man who got knocked out by Johnston. That was the first piggyback. Then you piggybacked on Eddie Hearn and Sky, and piggybacked on AJ's leftovers. Yeah? That's your career, boss man. You haven't made no inroads for yourself. You haven't got that get back against AJ. You didn't want it. You didn't value the honour of it. You valued the number, the money. And that's fine, but know that you ain't no big warrior roadman killer. You were goofy. And you're ducking Tyson Fury right now. And that's what your legacy will be. If this fight doesn't happen, Dillian Whyte will be known as the man who ducked the smoke and who was shook of Tyson Fury. And that's just what it is, because Tyson Fury don't rate you. He's already told you, I'll wipe your bum, and I don't even want no rematch clause. Oops. I'm telling you now, Tyson Fury is giving Dillian Whyte the ultimate disrespect. Giving him no respect whatsoever. He thinks you're a bum. And right now, who can blame him? Because right now, you're the one. Oh, Tyson Fury's numbers. You're the one talking about numbers. Tyson Fury ain't said nothing about it. He's giving you just deserve.